Good morning, and we are trusting that you are keeping well. Thank you so much for joining us right here on MBCI TV. And the program is the Mid-Morning Pack, a program whereby we tackle a number of issues that are of current affairs and also of significance to you, especially during this particular time when we are moving towards the new government that we are expecting to be launched and the inauguration to be held next week on Tuesday. And today we want to tackle quite a number of things as far as the transition is concerned. And thank you so much for finding time to be with us on MBCI TV. And remember, you can join us by texting us on 23814, that is our SMS line. And also on WhatsApp, 0721-105-105, 0721-105-105. My name is Mangicho Mola, and today we'll be looking at regime transition dynamics. We are having change of regime, and now after the Supreme Court upheld the election of Dr. William Samoei Ruto, who is going to be the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya. We want to look at what are some of the issues that pertains to this regime transition. Thank you so much for finding time to be with us. And I have lined up for you a very able panel to help us navigate through this particular discussion this morning. And I want to bring them on board to introduce themselves. And I'll start with the one who is on my right. Karibu sana to introduce yourself, and thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for the invite. My name is Cornelius Oduor. I'm the CEO at the Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance, popularly known as CEDGG. Yes. We are a local human rights organization based in Nakuru and doing work in the Greater Rift Valley.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Karibu sana, Cornelius Oduor, the CEO CEDGG, and I'm also having another guest on board. I want to give him also an opportunity to introduce himself. Karibu sana.
Thank you. My name is Mwalimu Michael Gashori. I am a person who is very keen on leadership and that's a consultancy in leadership. Yes.
Karibu sana Mwalimu Michael Gashoi, and I believe you'll also help us so much even as we tackle matters of leadership today in this particular program. And maybe just to start with you, Bwana Cornelius Oduor, what is it that is outstanding as far as this particular transition is concerned?
Yeah, I think the most outstanding thing is that this has been a largely peaceful transition compared to the previous contested elections where we've seen people go out, demonstrate, destroy property, lives, and so on. This one has really demonstrated that we've moved 1 or 2 steps higher in terms of our political maturity. That whereas we can have contested elections, we have agreed as Kenyans and the political players to resolve our differences using the laid-down procedures. And after IBC had announced the president-elect, there was a petition raised by the Azimio side. And unlike the previous elections, this time around they remained calm. They were able to raise their issues at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has returned the verdict and have upheld the election of the Honorable William Ruto. And we can see that even the petitioners have accepted, though they have not agreed with the findings of the verdict, but they have accepted, which is a sign of maturity in our democratic process.
Mwalimu Michael Gashoi, do you share the same sentiments?
Yeah, we definitely appreciate the peace, that it's going to be a peaceful transition. And particularly more so when you look at it that the current president, the sitting president was even supporting the person who has actually lost the election. But still, there is a lot of peace, and there is a lot of the people in government, the civil service, and they are the ones who are actually organizing that transition. So I agree with my colleague here that in itself is a show of maturity in our democracy. Yes.
And this is all about maybe the change. Maybe does it mean that the nature and maybe the kind of our political leaders, the ones that we have, is it that they have changed? We're seeing them now maybe doing things differently, or is it a different lot maybe of leaders that we're having?
We don't have, actually when you look at the top, the same leaders that we have been having, are they exactly the same? We don't have a very major change in terms, if you look at the president-elect, he has been there in the political space from 1992. If you look at the current president, he has been there for quite some while. If you look at Raila Amolo Odinga, he has also been there for quite some while. And even Mother Karua and all the others, Kalonzo Musyoka, you know, the people at the very top, we don't have a major change in personalities. But I guess this one here speaks very well for our institutions. First and foremost, the Supreme Court, that they can be able to make a decision, and that decision is respected by everyone. To me, that is a plus to our institutions. I think it's just a matter of maturing and realizing that although we may have backed one or the other person, the person who is elected by the majority of Kenyans actually ends up becoming president. Yeah. For me, I'm very proud because if you look at the 2007 elections, the difference between the two candidates, again, it was a very contested issue, was only 400,000 votes. And yet it became very acrimonious. This time round, we have even a narrower margin. But when you look at the kind of maturity that has been seen after the election, we haven't even heard of people calling one another names and so on. There is a certain level of decorum that we have noticed amongst the political class that I think is very, very critical and is very important.
Wow. Mr. Oduor, you also give credit to the 2010 Constitution and as far as what we are seeing now is concerned.
Sure. You see, at the beginning, the Supreme Court never used to be there. Yeah. And the 2010 Constitution gave us the apex court to deal purely with the presidential petition issues and other broader constitutional issues. But I must say that democracy is a work in progress. As you see, we've been able to learn with every other election. We've been able to see the gaps. We've reviewed our laws and legislations to try and fill the gaps that are existing. So the previous petitions have raised very fundamental issues and therefore have informed successive improvement in our electoral laws. You can see that even in this petition, there was a lot of reference to the 2017 petition. Yeah. And one of the issues is that whether IEBC really abided by the issues that were raised by the 2017 petition. And you can see that there have been a tremendous improvement in terms of how we manage our elections, right from registration of voters to the voting exercise itself, the transmission, and by large, even though there were a bit of challenges here and there that are normal in any process, but we've improved over time. We've learned from our mistakes, and I think this is what has seen us now have a more peaceful transition compared to the previous elections.
And what does it mean for you, or what does it mean to you, Mwalimu Michael Gashoi, even when, yes, we're looking at this transition, and as we've said, it is true that there is the sense of our democracy really having grown, but when you look at the side, there's a new side that had already taken their case to court, and saying that though they accept the decision, but they don't agree with it. What does it mean to you?
I think first and foremost, let me just say what Mr. Oduor has said, kind of re-emphasize that taking a petition to court in itself is a growth of democracy. In fact, when you look at the growth of a democracy, it has come from whether it is the demonstrations in the streets, which brought in what the people popularly call the second liberation. Or it is petitions that have been there. In fact, every petition has come out with a ruling, and that ruling has helped to improve the next election. Like the 2013 presidential petition helped to improve the 2017 election. Yeah. The 2017 election, I just want to pick up one thing. And you remember the presidential election was nullified based on the fact that the servers were not, and the transmission was not made public. Yeah. But this time, everything that was being sent there was on a public portal. That in itself is something that grew not from legislation in Parliament, but from the ruling of the Supreme Court 2017. And therefore, to me, I think we should also credit, particularly Raila Amolo Odinga.
Yes.
even as much as many people would want to verify him, we should credit him for the fact that 2013, 2017, he took the petitions to court, and that petition, the ruling of the Supreme Court, actually helped improve. And I believe, even when the final reasons for throwing out the petition and so on are given in this petition, I am very sure they will help improve the 2027 elections. And therefore, the growth of democracy is, or the rule of law is actually comes either from registration in parliament or even from rulings of the, because they set precedents, rulings of the courts. Whether it's Supreme Court or whichever other court, they help improve that. And to me, that is something that is very good. Even it also puts confidence in any other person that if at all I am disgruntled with the rule, with the way the elections were done, I can always go to the courts and get to our judiciary will give me justice. To me, that is very good. But however, let me also put it to the question that you have asked. You don't always have to agree with the ruling of the court. It is not agreeing, accepting are two different things. You respect that if a rule, the rule of law demands that even though, like for example, we know there are people who have been taken to court, they have been found guilty. Many years later on, they have been found that they were not guilty. That means, therefore, that those people who are judges are not infallible. They can actually make mistakes. And because they can make mistakes, you say, okay, I don't agree with what you have said, but I respect that, and I'm going to abide by it. That's basically what the petitioner said. We don't agree. We feel that this one here was not done in the right way, but because you have ruled, and because we believe in the rule of law, we are going to abide by what you have ruled.
Yes. Well, the reason why I want you, when I would also to come on these, because there are those who maybe would want to think that maybe just is because they are politicians, they would really not maybe want to show their supporters that maybe they lost this particular battle. But coming maybe from an organization that is very keen on matters democracy, what is your perspective on the same? Are we looking at a situation whereby maybe the judgment that was done was given maybe on the basis maybe of what actually the court really found?
Yeah, there are two things when you go to court. Is that you have your argument and your prayers, and you support your arguments and prayers with evidence, which can come in form of material evidence to show that there was breach of law, or you have witnesses who can testify. So the arguments can look very strong, but at the end of the day, what will inform the decision or the kind of the verdict is the strength of your evidence and witnesses. So now that parties accept that they abide by the rule of law, and this is what defines our democratic process, they have no option but to accept the verdict, as much as they may not agree with it, because everybody went to these elections to win.
And the fact that maybe they say that they differ with the judgment of them, does it in any way maybe erode the trust maybe of the court?
See, it depends with the final details of the ruling, because the court has spoken, and we'll be able to get the nitty-gritties of why they made certain decisions. And my reading of the preliminary or the initial ruling by the court was that they did not find material evidence to support the allegations raised by the Azimio side. You could see that there were various things that were supposed to be determined. If one of them was if there was interference in the Form 34As. And the petitioners did actually raise a number of areas and polling centers or polling stations where they felt that justice was not done, or there was changes, manipulation of results. And what did the assessment of those particular polling stations give us? Actually, the verdict was that there was no significant difference between what was relayed in the IBC portal and the actual original Form 34As. Okay. So what then supports this particular case by the petitioner? And I think that is what informed the kind of verdict that we had. That there was no material evidence to support the allegations raised by the petitioners.
Actually, what Mr. Oduor, there is a keyword that he has used.
Yes.
Was there significant evidence?
Sure.
I remember even before the ruling, somebody asking me in the morning, how do you think it's going to be? I said, even in a situation where there is evidence, like there were a few breaches here and there, like even where they were being examined, those who watched over the live on TV, they found that there were some certain irregularities that actually go against the law. For example, Form 34A is not put in the ballot box. One of the copies of from that Form 34A has not been put in the box. Another box is having two Form 34A. And taking into consideration that these results, let me use class because that is where we were, that's what people would understand better. Because most of the polling stations were schools, primary schools. If you went to one class, that was a polling station. It is different from the other class. So how did a certain box end up having two Form 34As? One for the other class, and now one for the class where they were. You know, that in itself raises certain questions. But the question that Mr. Oduor has said, and that one that Kenyans we need also to ask is this: was this sufficient to warrant either a rerun or the nullification of the results? And the answer that the court found is there was no, the keyword I have said, significant. Yeah, there were no significant irregularities to mandate the court giving a verdict of nullifying the results. Sure.
Wow. And remember, our dear viewer, the question that we are asking you during this particular discussion is, what is your advice to the incoming administration or to the incoming government? What is your advice to the incoming administration or to the incoming government that will be sworn in next week on Tuesday? You can give us your opinion on 23814, that is the SMS short code, 23814, or 0721 105 105, that is on WhatsApp. And also you can catch us live on Facebook page, that is MBCI TV, and also on YouTube, that is MBCI TV official. And we'll be glad to sample some of your opinions on the same. Now, Mr. Oduor, we have a new government. And this was a very, very hotly contested election. Even the margin, as Mwalimu had said, is very narrow. And already the president-elect, Dr. William Ruto, has pledged to be the president of the entire country. So that basically means that maybe he is cognizant of the fact that 6.9 million Kenyans did not vote for him. Yeah. What does it take to be the president of the entire country?
Of course, elections is just a competition, as it were. But everybody had a commitment to serve Kenyans, not for those who voted for him or her only. Why you are seeking office is that because you want to address pertinent issues affecting Kenyans and you feel that you have the ideas and the program to address these issues. So when you are going for office, like for the presidency, it's not that you are going on to serve those people who elected you or who voted for you. Once you've been elected, you are occupying a state office to serve Kenyans. And our democracy demands that you serve all equally, regardless of whether they voted for you or not. Okay. Because that was their constitutional right to make a choice. What we say is that democracy demands that the majority will have their say. Yeah? Yes. And the fact that now the president-elect is in our office, we're just awaiting swearing in, his commitment now is to all Kenyans. And because these elections have been also largely divisive, by the way, in terms of the figures that we see, both sides garnered, the country for sure is torn, right in the middle. And I think it behoves the incoming president to now invoke leadership skills, because now the president is a symbol of national unity. And he must now bring all the sides, those who voted for him, those who did not vote for him, and bring them to this journey of building the new Kenya that he aspires, and rally us behind his vision as captured in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, so that we can be part of this, because he needs us to govern. This is a democratic process. We participated in making our voting choices or electoral choices. We are also going to participate in the running of this government by engagement in policy formulation through parliament, through the county assemblies, and the rest. So our constitution demands that he will manage or govern this country in a participatory way by involving all leaders across the political divide, stakeholders, all regions in Kenya, all counties. So there's nothing like being in government or not being in government. Once government has been formed, it's government for all people.
It's government for all people.
Yes.
Is it always like that, Mwalimu? Because you'll find that so many people are saying that it's like now we've lost it. There are people who will feel that it's like we've been left out. And Cornelius there has already talked about the leadership skills that the incoming president really needs to have. What does it really take to be a president of the entire country, even for those who did not vote for you, to really feel that at the end of the day we've not lost anything? And what does our history actually
I like the words of the president-elect, that he said that we are going to serve those people who elected us, those who didn't elect us, and even those who never voted. And in fact, if you look at the dynamics in the demographics in Kenya, you realize that the vast majority of Kenyans are minors. They are below the age of 18. They never voted. And that child in Lokichogio, or that child in Mukuru kwa Njenga, also deserves services, government services, just like the person in, say, for example, Gamadera, or in, in Tarbo, or in Eldoret. So basically what we are saying here is that I totally concur. Government is the government of the Republic of Kenya. It is not a Kenya Kwanza, as much as we say it's a Kenya Kwanza government, by the virtue of the fact that it will be formed by the people who have allegiance to that particular party. But the service delivery should be to all people, all Kenyans. If you cross-check, you realize that back in history, in fact, there was a one time whereby some people were arguing that the people who seems to have been in the opposition seems to have benefited from government more than those who actually voted for that government. There has been that argument in the past, right from the time of Moi through the times of Kibaki and all that. But when it comes to, say, for example, the projects that the government has to be done, has to do, the money is appropriated in Parliament. Parliament is a national institution. As much as we elected so-and-so in this particular party, it's a national institution. They are the ones who actually decide that we are going to put this money in this place, we are going to put this money in this other place. And you don't find that because you people, you voted for the opposition, there is nothing that you are going to get. Kenya is Kenya. And it is very true, we are going to have the president. The only thing that I would want to point out here is that when it comes to forming certain institutions of government, you realize that there will be a very heavy leaning or towards his party. Like, for example, the formation of the cabinet. Well, there are some people in the past, like even in the developed democracies like America, who have ended up, the president is from the Republicans, but goes to for a Democrat, openly professing Democrat, because this person has certain skills that are needed in running the affairs of state. And I believe that...
you think we need to reach at that particular point?
I believe that is the way that we should go. That
we should be able to see some
after the election, after the election, as soon as the election is over, now it is time to build the government. And particularly more so because our cabinet, according to the law, should not be people within the political class. Then picking technocrats out there who could probably have been siding with the other side, but this particular person has a certain skill that, or a certain level of knowledge that can be able to help me deliver on my manifesto. You see, if, for example, you have said that we are going to improve food security, And there is this guy who is so good in that area.
Yes.
But he was openly siding with Raila Amolo Odinga. Yes. Why not get that guy in parliament, in the cabinet? Because you see, in cabinet, there is collective responsibility. And they play allegiance, not to the person that I liked, but to the person who is the appointing authority.
The point that Mwalimu is raising is very interesting, Bonodoro. But is it really practical? Do you think as a country we've reached that
in a mature
level?
democracy, that should be the issue, because
and because even as you answer that, that is what would really make so many Kenyans, and maybe even those who maybe feel that they've been vilified, or maybe now they are being punished maybe for not voting the government, is because maybe they'll now be able to see that all the cabinet secretaries and maybe even the government positions that will be given to the ones that really supported the Kenya Kwanza side.
that will be very unconstitutional, and that is not what this constitution envisaged.
Our constitution has sorted that particular
Our
issue.
constitution actually has no provision to say that if you voted for a party that did not form government, then you don't deserve a position in that government. What we are saying is that we don't have opposition, as it were. What we have is minority voice and majority voice.
Majority voice, yeah.
So what we are having in parliament is that there are those whose parties are in the minority in terms of the strength, in terms of the number of members of parliament or senators. But the role of a member of parliament, whether you are in Kenya Kwanza or you are in Azimio, is to provide oversight, to legislate, and to represent the people.
Okay.
So this issue of being in the opposition is not legal, is not something that we can say is provided for in this constitution.
Yes.
What we have is the majority and the minority. And I think a pragmatic leader, because you want to serve the people, and you need the qualities that can deliver the services to the people, then you will go for the best. And I should not be sacrificed as Oduor, because probably somebody perceives that I supported the Azimio side. If I have the qualities, that is what should count. Because I have a right to a political decision choice. But that should not be used against me in terms of my aspiration or ability to serve in any capacity in this country. And I think we've seen that before. That once you form government, you've been given now a constitutional mandate to run a government.
Yes.
And therefore, you go for the best. And that's why any mature democracy will go for the best, regardless of their political need. Because at the end of the day, your success will be on the quality of services rendered to Kenyans, not loyalty to the president.
In fact, I have a feeling, and I'm even looking forward to such.
Yes.
That next week we might end up having that, because the president, once he's sworn in, he's going to pick his cabinet.
Okay.
And the fact that, say, for example, he has reached out to somebody like Kiraito Moronge, who was openly siding with Azimio,
Yes.
but has reached out to him and they have had some kind of discussion. It means, therefore, that I think he may, and I look forward to such a situation, he may end up picking people from across the divide to make up his government. Yeah, that one.
And that is something else that Mwalimu, I also want you to chip in on, because there are those who have also been arguing that because lately we've been seeing some of the leaders that maybe were on the other side now shifting their allegiance. What does it therefore do maybe now to the voice that we also need, maybe what we can call the opposition voice?
Now, one of the things that you realize is this. In Kenya, unfortunately, we don't have ideologically based parties and formations, political formations. If you look at basically Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, whatever, manifestos, you may realize that they are more or less talking the same things, but in different language. You know, in a different language. Like, if I may just pick one. In Azimio, there was the issue of Babacare. In Kenya Kwanza, there is the issue of universal health, universal health. So when you look at the two of them, basically they are talking about the same thing, but kind of putting it in different words. And to me, the fact that we don't have ideologically based parties does not mean that when somebody moves from one end of the divide to the other, they are actually changing in anything in ideology. They are simply changing the person that they support. So we have personality, even the parties here in Kenya, they are personality based. And that is why as soon as a certain particular leader is out of the, active politics, you realize that that party that it seems to be so powerful and so strong is no longer there. And we can give various examples from Ford, the original Ford, to Ford Kenya, to DP, to PNU, to to URP, to TNA, to now Jubilee. You can be able to see that people move. Okay. It's personality based. It's not whatever. I
want us to take a short break, Mwalimu, on this particular point. But when we come back, you'll also continue from where you've left, because there is also the question of one's philosophy, one's beliefs, one's principles. What does it mean for a leader when we see them maybe just shifting positions? What do they really stand for? The Kenyans who have been asking the same question. Remember, this is the Mid-Morning Pack right here on MBCI TV, our dear viewer. And the question that we are asking you is, what advice do you have for the incoming administration or the incoming government? And to help us go through this particular discussion, I'm having Bwana Cornelius Oduor, CEO, Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance, and also Mwalimu Michael Gashoi, consultant in matters leadership. We take a short break at this particular point. We are coming back with plenty more.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Msemaji wa ikulu ya Kenya anaitwa nani?
Msemaji wa ikulu wa Kenya. Msemaji wa ikulu Sandwa Kenneth Ambogwa.
What?
Kenneth Ambogwa.
Msemaji wa ikulu Kenya anaitwa nani?
Waitangura. Waitangura.
How many countries are there in Kenya?
10.
Name them.
Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, Nakuru, na Kakamega.
Which part of Africa is Kenya located?
Makueni.
Radiance Academy is a primary and nursery school based on Christian values. We have both day and boarding facilities. Radiance Academy is situated in Nakuru County along the Nakuru-Nairobi Highway, 500 meters from Free Area. Radiance Academy is one of the best schools in Nakuru County and the country at large. The school fees is affordable. Our teachers are competent, professional, and very friendly. With the introduction of CBC curriculum, worry no more. Great news to our parents and students. We are constructing junior high school classrooms to accommodate the new curriculum. The junior secondary construction includes workshop for the students, dormitories spacious enough, laboratories for various experiments, and enough field for play. Our teachers competent to handle this progress in education. At Radiance Academy, we nurture our students towards holistic growth and development. We embrace co-curriculum activities like games, skits, dramas, among others. We also have IT classes and offer guidance and counseling to our students. For more information, call us on 0784 438164 or 0707 071007. Radiance Academy, excellence through hard work and fear of God.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Welcome back to the program, the Mid-Morning Pack, right here on your favorite channel, MBCI TV audio viewer. And today we are discussing regime transition dynamics. And this is a very interesting show because we are just left with a few days to the inauguration of the new government. Next week on Tuesday, that will be 13th of this September, when the new president-elect, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, will be sworn in as the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. And in this particular show, I'm having two guests who are helping us to look at this particular situation or at this particular topic in details. I'm having Bwana Cornelius Odor. He is the CEO of Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance. And also Mwalimu Michael Gashoi, who is a consultant on matters leadership. And remember, you can catch us on 23814, that is our SMS short code, and also on 0721 105 105. And also on Facebook, the page is MBCI TV. We are asking you, what is your advice for the incoming government, or what is your advice for the incoming administration? Just before the break, Bwana Odor, we were talking about the issue of, we've seen lately, after the IBC declared Ruto the president, there's leaders who were in Azimio and they shifted their allegiance to the new, or maybe to Dr. William Samoei Ruto. But what does it tell of our political leaders? What does it talk about one's philosophy, one's beliefs, one's principles, even as far as matters maybe leadership and governance is concerned? And does it also have effect when you talk about the majority and also the minority as far as governance is concerned?
Yeah, this is one area that we still have challenges in our political process, democratic process, because you belong to a political party because of your belief in certain fundamental principles and policies that this political party believes in. And the fact that politicians find it fit to jump ship after the elections shows that we are still lagging behind in terms of our belief in the political parties that we belong to. So it tells you that we are largely in political parties to ascend to power, in which case if that political party does not succeed, then people shift to the party that has won the elections. And I think that that's not very good in terms of our democratic process, because then it tells us that we are not in this political party because of what they stand for, but because we feel that this will be the shortest path to accessing to or ascending to power. So it's not bad, it's a free choice, it's voluntary to belong to a political association, and therefore those who move, as much as it raises issues of integrity on their part, it's also their democratic choice to move to a new political formation. And it's also largely informed by these myth in Kenya that people want to be in government. And therefore, you will find even in the postponed gubernatorial elections in Mombasa and Kakamega, you'll hear the political leaders campaigning that we don't want to be in the opposition. How can a county government be in opposition? I think that's a fallacy, and it has no meaning in law. So what we are saying is that whereas it's their freedom to move, it must be informed by either a shift in belief, in policy, and it cannot just be moving towards the center so that you can get a few proceeds by way of appointment. And I think that's a work in progress. That is one area that probably in terms of building strong political parties, we still are lagging behind. We may need to see how we are able to build very strong political parties that are found on very sound policies in terms of how they want to address the various development challenges in the country, so that you don't just jump ship. It must be informed.
It must be informed.
It cannot just be a short path, a short way to getting into political appointment.
And you've used a very interesting term there, myth, because Mwalimu even has a contribute on that. The reason why some people think that we have this, we can talk about the hemorrhage of maybe some of the politicians moving to maybe now the government that is coming now, is because maybe they think that maybe when they are not there, maybe they are not going to benefit, maybe they are not going to, maybe their issues will not be looked at. But even as we look at it, and we also have the new constitution that brought in the aspect and the matter of devolution, should there be any cause for worry?
I agree with my brother Odwal that particularly more so for the county governments, there is nothing like being in opposition. Whether you are in Kenya Kwanza or you are in whatever, because the government that we have at the county level is a government, is a full government. By the way, in Kenya we have 48 governments. We have the county government and we have the national government. So the 47 county governments. Once the money comes from the exchequer to the county, the county is the one that controls what they do with that.
And the executive does not have any control, any say.
The executive, the national...
in terms of what will go
Let me put it this way, not even the executive. The national government does not have anything to do with what goes on at that level. What happens is that after you have used your resources, obviously there are certain checks and balances. To me, there are checks and balances. Like the controller of budget will come in there. The SRC will come in so that people don't just award themselves all manner of levels of salaries. But that is at the national level. But those are institutions. Like when we are talking about SRC, is the institution. And that institution is not controlled by the government of the day. Ideally, when the 2010 constitution put so many checks and balances, if we were to implement them to the letter, I'm telling you, people would not have to fight to be or start moving to be in government.
Yes.
By the way, being in opposition in itself is something that is very good. You may not have the ideas of, of state, but you bring in your ideas. And that does not mean that your ideas cannot be accepted simply because you are in the opposition. If you come up with a good idea that is going to help the country, whether in the opposition or in government, in fact, let me put it this way, we have a presidential system of government. Parliament, including the people who have been voted on the UDA, should not be viewing themselves as people in government. In fact, our constitution places the parliament as one of the roles of the parliament is to place checks and balances on the executive. And whether you are in UDA or you are in Jubilee or you are in ODM, yours is actually to serve the entire country. When a motion comes to parliament, you don't look at it and has it come from government or where has it come from? You look at what are the merits and the demerits of this particular bill. How can it help improve our country? How can it help the Wanjiko, the Atieno, and the Mwikali back in the village? If the members of parliament and the Senate were to look at themselves that way, there will be nothing like these issues of we are in government, we are not in government. The government, we really need to understand from even the civics, primary school civics, history and civics, that's what we did, some of us. We have three arms of government. We have the executive, we have the legislature, and we have the judiciary. The judiciary, by and large, has been able to cut a niche where they are independent. The executive has been a kind of a monolith thing that tries to interfere with everything up to the time that we have the new constitution. Because you remember that in the Old Testament, in the Old Constitution, the person who actually used to appoint judges without any person, checking on them was the president. But right now we have a system of appointing that judge. And that is why even when Uhuru Kenyatta did not appoint the 40 judges, remember there was a court ruling against him.
Yes.
So basically what we are saying here is members of parliament need to view themselves as actually they should be the opposition, kind of. But at the same time, I would also want to say that there is also another kind of thing that I don't know whether our constitution currently deals with it, but we have so many parastatals. We have so many semi-autonomous government agencies. We have so many other places where, because you are leaning towards this, you are appointed as a director this, as the chairman that, and so on. I think in the course of time, with a full implementation of our constitution, I think some of these things should be made fewer and fewer, such that once you are appointed, once you are the elected president, you form your cabinet, you run the policies, because that is policy formulation. You do the policy formulation. The implementation is actually the civil service, and the civil service does not serve it serves the government of the day. It doesn't go according to who is in power.
And Mola.
Yes, Bonador.
I also want to weigh in on this issue, and perhaps it's because of we still are suffering from some hangover of a highly centralized system of government, and some people still believe that the center is very important, and aligning your county government with the national government, then you stand to get more goodies than others.
And I know the issue of counties, Bonador, is very dear to you, even as you don't lose your line of thought. Has it been like that even for the previous years, that maybe those counties that have been perceived to be pro the national government, is there anything to say that maybe they are ahead of the other counties in terms of maybe development?
Not really. Evidence does not tell us that counties that were maybe led by Jubilee Party have benefited more. Because if you understand, if you look at the broader framework of planning and budgeting in this country, there's no planning for pro-government counties or planning for Jubilee counties or Azimio or ODM counties. Our basic framework of planning is informed by Vision 2030, which is a further detailed in the medium-term plan, 5-year medium-term plan. Every county developed their own budget that is informed by the 5-year strategic plan, the so-called CIDP, or the County Integrated Development Plan. And these governments, the county governments, are recognized in the constitution as distinct governments. They exist because they are recognized in law. They are not appendages of national government. And therefore, they have every right to plan and budget. And they allocate resources equitably based on parameters that go beyond political affiliation. The parameters we are looking for determine the resource allocation in this country is population, poverty, the geographic size of the county, and many other factors. So it's not which political party or political affiliation you belong to. So this myth that we want to be in government is something that should not be tolerated anywhere in this current dispensation. So I was saying that we are still suffering from the hangover. That if the center, you are known by the center, or the center feels that you supported them, then you stand to benefit. If anything, why is it that there was a lot of challenges in Central Kenya that was perceived to be heavily in government, if you use that word? So it doesn't count. What is important is to get the right leadership in place and to get our priorities right. Because the Constitution is very clear that everybody deserves development, regardless of your political inclination. And I think that's what drives the formation of national and county governments. And I think for anybody to imagine that you are aligning, or as a governor, at a governor is defecting, there's nothing like that. And the governor has moved from Azimio to Kenya Kwanza Coalition. It's immaterial. At the end of the day, you have a government that's legitimate, is recognized in law, and your business is to run that government. You've been given a chance to put in an administration to deal with the problems and to address the manifestos, the issues that you articulated in your manifesto. So what does mean shifting your political alliance?
and even if Mr. Oduor, you remember even when we had and you have rightly put it, one of the best improved counties, so to say, it has been there in the public domain. So that's why I say that, is Kakamega. Kakamega, the governor was ODM. We had another one like, let me not mention because this is in the negative, but we had some counties in affiliated to Jubilee. And there was a lot of did very poorly. There was a lot of cry that the level of corruption in that county was very high, you know, that kind of thing. And they were in government quote unquote. So I agree with him. It's a myth. It's a fallacy. It's not. It is neither here nor there that a governor is actually allied to this, you know, the party or the other party.
And unfortunately, Mwalimu, so many Kenyans would still look at what we call the national government, or do really look at the top there. We have very few who are really concentrating, who are paying attention to their county governments. What therefore needs to be done for them to actually begin, maybe even to put their counties, to hold them into account, to be very, very much maybe attentive with what is happening there, because this one affects them directly.
In fact, that focus on the national government is what, in my considered view, made some of the electorate make very poor choices. They make very poor choices. They vote in somebody not because of the, you know, of the leadership qualities that he or she has, but based on which party. You find that this particular person is person A is in a certain particular. He's very good. He's very good in as far as leadership is concerned, and he has proved himself elsewhere, or even in politics. But he's rejected on the basis that he's in the wrong party. I think to me that one is a poor choice by the Kenyans, because that particular person that you have voted in with, and we have quite more than a fair share in Kenya of people who are just voted in based on the political party which they were in, and in that region, this whatever that was the bedrock of this particular party. But what we are saying is that if people were to make right choices, what my brother is saying here is should be what should be there. The money that is supposed to come to Nakuru County, for example, the 15 billion, is still going to come whether we are, you know, like we have had, you know, somebody elected on an independent in Meru.
Yes.
Independent candidate, that particular person, although later on she said, I'm leaning towards this direction.
Yeah.
But basically that person is independent and runs that not based on the political policies of the big parties, but you run that county. Whatever you envisioned to do, you do it. You are given a space of 5 years.
Exactly.
You do it. Use the money that is there, helped by the county assembly, you know, and helped by the executive that you pick. You deliver to the people, and probably they will give you another term. But if at all we lean on just a matter of, and that in itself brings also a lot of issues of corruption and misappropriation of resources, because as long as I know, for example, I'm affiliated to Jubilee, to use the parents of the young people, Mutadu,
Yeah.
you know, as long as I'm there, I know I am protected.
Yes.
That should not be the case in as far as the drafters of our constitution were concerned. Actually, devolution is a very, very good thing. That you are given your money that from the national whatever. The money that we have gathered from our taxes or from the national budget, you're given your 15 to 35%, whichever the case. And once you're given, if you utilize that money properly, you realize that in due course, some of the counties might pick up much faster economically than the others. Simply because of the way that they utilize the resources that they have in that they are given.
Okay.
So the issue of affiliations to political parties is neither here nor there.
From your perspective, Bwana Odur, even as you address this particular issue, what do you think needs to be done? Like, for example, an organization like Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance, what do you think needs to be done to Mwananchi to pay more attention, to put a lot of focus on the leadership at the county levels, and maybe even looking at the example of the new governors that we've had? So many of them have been coming and saying that there have been a lot of maybe public wastage there. Some of them also looking at other issues, but it's like we have the Mwananchi not really paying attention to this.
Of course, now that we are, elections are behind us, and now we have new administration in counties. Now we should shift our focus to engaging the government of the day to deliver on the promises. Because we believe that those who were elected, they were elected on the strength of their policies, their promises they gave to Wananchi, that once they are in office, they are going to deal with these problems around maybe health, education, agriculture, and those kind of things. So we need to have a structured engagement. And for us to have a structured and objective engagement, we need to, as a civil society organization and those who are interested in civic matters, to continue doing civic education or political education so that people are able to engage from a position of knowledge. Because once a government is formed, then the next thing is focusing on implementation of policies of this particular administration. And what a better way to implement policies, because now what counties are doing currently is to formulate the county integrated development plans. And we should ensure that the issues that are at our core of our development needs and priorities find their way in the county integrated development plan. So as a governor, the head of the county government, they should be able to ensure that now the issues that they had in their manifesto are also properly articulated in the CIDPs. Because the CIDPs is what will define the broad development priorities for the next 5 years. And that then will inform the annual budgets for the next 5 years. So as citizens, we need now to have a constructive dialogue with the people we put in leadership to ensure that the promises don't just become hot air, using the words of the Supreme Court, but they are now translated into tangible development programs that will be implemented through the annual budgets. And that implementation of the annual budget also requires that we build a very strong force for civilian oversight, so that we are able to ask the right questions at the right time. Otherwise, if we sit back now and say that now that we are in government, Kenyans like that, we are in government, we'll wait, and then we start complaining that this government has not delivered on its promises. So it calls for active citizenship. And I must also put a challenge to the county assembly, that the role of the county assembly is to provide oversight by scrutinizing the policies, the legislations, the programs that are presented by the executive. So they should move away from this comfort zone that they are also in government. They need to check the executive and ask questions, interrogate the policies, weed out the corrupt, petition them, challenge, remove them from office through mechanisms that have been provided. Otherwise, without the concerted effort of the county assembly and checking on the county executive, then all these promises will just remain a dream. And that will be very frustrating for the citizens.
Now, I'm of the opinion that even some of the promises should not be fulfilled.
Yes.
Because some of them were meant to simply hoodwink the electorate to vote for them. I can say that, and I don't want to give too many examples. But I think it is the part that Mr. Odore is saying. We need to have an engagement in dialogue, such that we actually look at some of those promises and we ask, is this really what we need? Because in the morning I put something like on my Facebook. I was thinking through some of those things that have been said.
Yes.
And you realize like the issue of food security is an issue. And when some of the people, what they have said, we need to give farmers subsidized whatever fertilizer. I say it, and I just want to read the way I put it. Yes. Subsidized fertilizer is not the panacea to food security. We need to do several other things. For example, one, stop the 1-ton subdivision of arable land. In the name of Broti Maguta Maguta, you understand the people who say that.
Yes.
We should also have more mechanized agriculture, which of course cannot take place when we are subdividing our land. We need to have improvement of animal breeds and animal husbandry. We need to decrease dependency on rain-fed agriculture to irrigation. We need to have food storage and processing improvement. We need to create or venture into more markets so that our farmers can end up being motivated. Because so much of what is being produced is actually going to waste. We need to change agriculture from an occupation of the rural folk to agribusiness. You know, basically what we are saying is that we need to question, instead of now dealing with agriculture subsidies, is there something else that we can do? Because agriculture subsidies, as much as it has been promised, I believe it is a very short term. And number two, I don't believe it is sustainable. So we need to look for long-term solutions
sure.
to our problems. So some of and if we get engaged in dialogue, and unfortunately, our constitution and the law also provides for something like that. Yeah. But unfortunately, our people are so either not informed, or they don't care. There is a kind of don't care attitude, or they are not aware that they have a role to play. For example, there is supposed to be public participation in every development project. There is not supposed to be a development project in this, or even the law, or even when it comes to passing any legislation. There is supposed to be public participation. And I can tell you what, especially the county governments have been doing. These ones have not been, the information is not widespread. What they do is, they say we are going to have public participation, and they invite the people who they believe are going to back whatever they want to do. So there is a meeting, say for example, in Bahati, in a certain hall, and the people go there and they register. As they register, each one of them is given 200 shillings. For participation, public participation is not supposed, you're not supposed to be paid for public participation. Yes. Because you are actually engaging in dialogue on what will benefit you for the long term.
Right.
You should, in fact, complain when you are being paid, because you should say some of this money that is we are being given should actually go towards that project, so that it is either bigger or even better implemented or faster. Yes. So basically, what we are saying is that what has been there in called public participation, in my view, it is people who are pro that project who are invited, or even people who know nothing about that project. Okay. Then they come and they sign somewhere that I participated, and therefore, in case it is questioned anywhere, they can say we held a public participation in this hall. So to me, what Oduol was saying, there is need to be an engagement in dialogue. Yes. It's very critical. It is provided for in the law, and therefore that is what we should go for. And the citizens themselves should pick upon themselves. We should not only point out to our leaders. Even the citizens have a right to point out the good, and the bad, and the ugly. Yes. Whenever it happens.
Whenever it happens. That's very right. And remember, you are still joining us on the Mid-Morning Park right here on MBCI TV. And we are talking about transition regime dynamics, even as we look forward to the inauguration of the new government that will be held on next week. That will be on 13th, and next week on Tuesday, when we'll be expecting Dr. William Samoei Ruto to be sworn in as the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya. And as Mwalimu said, I want to also touch on that. There are a lot of promises that were actually made. And even as the new government will be sworn in next Tuesday, now, what Kenyans will be waiting for is to be able now to see some of these promises being put into implementation. What do you think, even as we look forward to the inauguration of the new government next week, what do you think are some of the most important things that Kenyans should actually now begin to see, that we are now seeing changes, we are now seeing results, even maybe in the first 100 days?
Yeah, this being a very important period in our transition. Of course, the transition itself is just an event that's provided for in the Constitution to signify that the president-elect has now assumed fully the office of the presidency, and is taking an oath of affirmation to say that I'll abide by what is provided for in the Constitution with regard to the role of the presidency. That is all. Now, the big part is now implementation of the very, very many promises that were made during the campaigns. And I think the very, very first thing that we expect to see is how this new administration will move to shift the various budget priorities that we have. So maybe we expect to see some major shift in resources allocated to priority areas. For example, the Kenya Kwanza coalition has really gave a lot of promise to the hustlers. Now, people are looking forward to seeing the hustlers fund. Yes. And I think because budgets were already done, we're likely to see a proposal in Parliament to allocate resources towards meeting the needs of the many hustlers, the many unemployed young people. And that is going to be a parliamentary process, probably through a supplementary budget, to see to it that they are able to move very fast to allocate resources to roll out this particular promise. That will also require some kind of legislation, because as you know, the Constitution does not allow us to allocate resources without any kind of legislation to guide in the management of those funds. So we are likely to see priority in areas of legislation to put in place a policy and a legal framework to implement some of the promises. And that's why you see that they have moved very fast to consolidate their support and numbers in Parliament, because they know they'll require numbers to push through, pass some of these proposals in Parliament. Yes. Otherwise, without numbers in Parliament, some of these proposals might not see the light of the day, because in Parliament it's about numbers and your ability to persuade legislators across the political board to support your idea. So we expect that there will be those quick wins that the new administration will seek to pursue in terms of addressing the very, very needs that they are promised in terms of the hustlers, in terms of dealing with the health issues, in terms of availing funds for business, in terms of boosting agriculture production. So we are likely to see some policy shift that will be informed, will culminate into reallocation of resources in the current budget.
And you know, Mwalimu Gashoy, even as you pick from where Odor has left, this is where we normally say the rubber meets the road. And some of those promises, and even looking at something like maybe the cost of living, which has actually been for many Kenyans, and so many Kenyans have actually been going through very tough times. When you look now at how the government will be able to look at something like this, because we've seen in the past regimes the promises that were made and they were not fulfilled, and so many Kenyans felt quite disenfranchised as far as that is concerned, or even maybe being disillusioned. When you look at this time round, what needs to be done different?
One, I think we need to move from political sloganeering from political promises to actually economic management. And we need, even if I was to be asked by the new government, I would say, forget about whatever you promised the people. Honestly.
That was just for political...
That was for politics. Yes. And, you know, we are even talking about... Some of them are very good. Let me give a very simple example. There are certain issues, the cost of living will bring it down. Now, Kenya is a net importing. In fact, it's a shame that I came to learn when there was the Ukraine war, that we import 60% of our wheat from Ukraine. In an agricultural-based economy, I think that one is a shame. So
we only do 40%?
We only produce 40%. 60% we get from outside. Wheat. Now, and that is one of the things that we need to engage in as far as the food security is concerned. But there's also certain things that I question, and I even question, I'm not questioning right now, I even questioned even that time when they were being, as a person, and in my discussion with a few. Instead of promising people that you're going to give them money, remember, in this country we have, even through registration, we have money for the aged. We ask ourselves, how many of us know of people who are aged and are getting that money?
The 2,000.
Contrary, even when it was put there, my mother is now 80. She went to register for that thing. I tried telling her, forget about it. But she registered. But she never gets anything.
Why?
We have money for the disabled. We have money for the youth. We have money for the women. We ask ourselves, other than it being a conduit, you remember sometimes the money for the youth, some people being taken to court, that they have misappropriated that money.
Sure.
Other than it being a conduit for siphoning money out of government and creating a lot of bureaucracy and therefore employing your cronies and your friends, how else is it helping this economy? Why can't we have a more permanent solution? Like, for example, can government stop internal borrowing? Because as soon as the government stops internal borrowing, the banks, by the way, internal borrowing is not you and me. Of course, they are human beings. They are people who actually lend to government through treasury bills. But we are basically saying if the government was to lower the borrowing from internal borrowing, like what happened during the Kibaki regime, banks benefit from giving credit. And therefore, they will not have the government to give credit to. They will now go to give credit to Mwananchi. And by so doing, you'll have lowered the costs of credit. So once the credit is lowered, the cost of credit is lowered, that is the interest rates are lowered, definitely people will be able to get the money, not now from Fuliza, but from established institutions, banking institutions. So we need to look at this in a more holistic thing. We should not kind of imagine that there is something called government which actually manufactures or has a lot of money and therefore it is out there to give to the people. We should know one of the things that Kenyans need to be informed. Government has no money. Government gets money from the people in terms of taxes. And what we need to do is a prudent expenditure, you know, of that tax, you know, an appropriation of that tax that we give to government. My money, when I pay taxes, either direct taxes or indirect, is what the government is promising to give to people. On what basis? So basically what we need to do is let Kenyans, this is a capitalistic whatever, let Kenyans who want to get credit for buying a cow or get credit for whatever, improving your business, be able to go to the banking institutions by government ensuring that they lower the cost of interest or the cost of that money, you know, the interest rates. And the best way of lowering the interest rates, government stop borrowing from, and that is what also why we need some our fiscal policies. That's why we need, when it comes to the way that we use to raise our money, Parliament should actually ensure there is no wastage. Because when we lower wastage, then government will be able to meet its whatever. And again, we also lower what do we call it? The wage bill. And I believe that is what some of the governors, like the governor Kisii, has found. That the wage bill is a lot too much, and we are actually wasting it on ghost workers. So we need to lower the wage bill. Actually, government should not be the biggest employer. The government should be able to create an enabling environment so that Mangicho and Gashohi and Oduor can be able to create enterprises, and those enterprises employ the people. So the government should create an enabling environment, not to be an employer itself. Lower the wage bill, lower the interest rates, let the people go to the whatever. Instead of saying, I am dishing out money. Where are you getting this money that you are ready to dish out?
That's $1 million question, Odur. And Mwalimu here was insinuating that even the Kenya Kwanza should actually even forget the promises that they've made. And
some of the promises.
Some of the promises.
But that would amount to a political fraud.
Yes.
Because people made decisions based on the promises, and they felt that you are more promising and you are more practical. You are speaking to their needs. So for you to go around and say that you are going to drop all those promises, I know some of them were populist. You just say something to attract support.
So you think some of them will never
some of the promises
will never be realized?
Are not practical. You see, we are inheriting a very indebted economy. Our public debt is historically the highest we've ever reached.
So they underperform in case it fails to...
So this economy, there's the much that this economy can do because of the amount of money, the percentage of the resources that we are using to pay, to honor our public debts, leaves very little room for us to navigate in terms of
does it therefore mean that it might take a long time for Kenyans maybe to begin to see the changes, because we first of all maybe have to fix what has been very difficult?
Some of where we find ourselves, the economic mess we find ourselves in require a long-term, deliberate policy to address some of these issues. First is to put some kind of safeguards so that we don't have this situation whereby we borrow, then we lift the lid and increase the debt limit. We continue borrowing. Borrowing is not bad. But you see, we've reached a limit whereby the amount of our investment, how we invested the amount that we borrowed, we heavily invested in infrastructure.
Okay.
But you can see now the infrastructure is long term. Now the rate of return in terms of the benefits of the heavy investment infrastructure is taking long to accrue back to the economy. And therefore there must be some balance to ensure that we don't overburden the economy with a lot of public debt. So what I see as critical is that where is the priority? Where are our short-term priorities? Like this economy is choking in public debt.
Like when you talk about the cost of living, the cost of
living
the cost
is
of
high.
Yeah.
There's a lot the price of basic commodities. Talk of fuel.
How is this supposed to be addressed? Because Kenyans maybe would want even to see it maybe in the next 1 month.
Of course, the short-term mechanisms of dealing with this could be ways of providing some structured subsidy, whereby the most deserving are able to access the basic commodities. The only problem that we've had with the subsidy is that it's not well thought. And therefore, we end up with a subsidy that deprives us of the most important commodities. When this subsidy for maize and flour was introduced, you could see that the net effect was that even that flour was not in the supermarket in the first place. So people say it is better we have it with a high price and it's available than have it subsidized and it's not there.
Yes.
So I think how we structure and program for subsidies is what has been the problem, because largely they are done for political expediency, and therefore they are not well thought out. Reading and listening to news yesterday, manufacturers are complaining that they are yet even to be that their bids are yet to be settled. For those who offer the subsidized maize flour, they are yet to be settled by government. So who is this manufacturer who is willing to give maize flour on a subsidized price, and there's no known date when you'll be paid? Some of these companies can go down. So what I'm saying is that Kenya Kwanza had a very broad policy on how to fix this economy. And I think now is to put that promise, that manifesto, that policy into practice by having short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategies to deal with these issues. Of course, we must look at the quick wins and must look at the most important things to do to safeguard and to remove the most vulnerable and the marginalized society from the problem of accessing the basic needs, being able to afford mechanisms through which we can acquire, we can deal with the food insecurity, we can deal with issues of access to education, which is a problem, access to basic healthcare, which is a problem. So some of this is work in progress. Like now the universal health coverage is something that has been piloted in a number of counties. And I think we have fundamental lessons to learn from it, so that we can have people access affordable medical health care. We can deal with the issue of education. I think we've had challenges with the current curriculum. How do we fix it so that we remove ourselves from this uncertainty? We don't know this whole issue about the junior secondary schools. Are they in primary? Are they in secondary? Which schools are children applying for? So all this confusion can be fixed by the current administration in terms of what they think needs to be done almost immediately. Of course, others will have to be dealt with in the long term. So I think just requires a clear purpose and a clear plan. We are past the campaign period. Like now the implementers, the technocrats, put their mind and address these issues. Now there's no room for political rhetorics. It's back to business.
It's back to business.
I want to say that my brother has said that if some of these are abandoned, it would amount to political fraud, and I totally agree with that. But when it is one thing campaigning, it's another thing being in, dealing with government.
Yes.
The problems that we are having in this country, they are in so many areas that they must be prioritized and say this is the problem number one that we're going to deal with, and this is problem number two, problem number three. They deal with them in a very systematic manner. Not in a populist. I looked at two of the governors, not mentioning of names. And I looked at it and I said, whatever they are promising, well, it was a campaign promise, but whatever they are saying is actually not only unsustainable, but it will end up ruining certain things. Like, for example, bringing hawkers back to the streets of one of the towns. Yes. Now, that in itself, it may be popular with the hawkers, but what about the business people who do their business there? What, they are hiring premises. You know, they're hiring premises. They need also to get to be assured of their income. So we need a systematic way of dealing with the problems that Kenya is having. Okay. And you and I have been here in Kenya. And in the Jubilee administration, I remember 2013, one of the promises was every child going to primary school will be getting a laptop. After 10 years, and please remember that some of the people who will be in the current, in the next government, are actually a part of that Jubilee. You know, it's good to call a spade a spade. Yes. Where are those laptops? And now they are finishing. So they're in the university. Those guys, they're in the university. Where are they? So basically, what I want to say is that you come into government and then you realize this is not a priority. And it may have been very popular, but it is not a priority. And therefore, we need to set priorities right. There are certain problems that we need them fixed immediately, like the cost of living. And if today I was the president, I was the one to be sworn in next Tuesday. I'm not. So, so my words may neither be here nor there. But I would want to. The first thing that I would do is forget about the issue of people complaining about our farming. Our people in Kenya, most of them have not started harvesting maize. I would actually allow the importation of maize from Malawi, you know, a country that used to be food deficient a few years ago. Now it has food surplus. From Malawi, allow that. And I know somebody went to Malawi, bought some maize there. By the time that it is reaching Nairobi, it is 1,800. The cost of buying, transport, everything up to Nairobi is 1,800. A bag of maize right now here in Nakuru is costing 5,200. So, and you know, when people are talking about the price of unga, for example, how would a miller decrease the price of unga when the price of maize is actually going up? So in this case, therefore, bring down the cost of maize. And how do you do that? Allow importation. You know, it may not be the most popular thing to say, especially amongst the farmers, to the farmers, but allow importation, especially in the Comesa region. Once they bring in the maize, the price will stabilize, the cost of food will go down, at least one item, and once the cost of that item, you'll be seen as delivering now. Now deal with the other problems, let alone. And of course, also protect our farmers so that, again, it doesn't go too low, and then our farmers are also terribly affected. Yes, there must be some kind of policy on that. But basically what I'm saying is that there is need for setting priorities, and there is need for sitting down, and some of them, as Mr. Odola said, will require registration. Some of those things you cannot just you know, some people are expecting even the 90 days the 100 days that we were promised. They may not be enough to go and come up with a bill, take it to Parliament. It is debated through the 3 readings, and it is passed, and then now you implement. Yes. Some of the ones that can be, or whatever, can be dealt with through executive orders. Maybe that one can be done, but long term is in matters of policy and the law. And there is a process to it. And I'm one person who is not expecting a miraculous kind of change in the course of the next, even the 100 days that we've been promised. Some things, yes, can be done, but I think some of the things need to have a long term. And unless we have a long term kind of a policy framework, I don't expect much of that change. There was one which I think was abandoned somewhere along the way, in my view. The Vision 2030, he alluded to it. The Vision 2030 was an excellent piece of policy. And if we would have strictly adhered to that, even with the transition, even with the dynamics of transition, if we would have adhered to that strictly, I think we would not be where we are.
And Bwana Odur, there is something that is very important, and there is therefore the need for Kenyans even to be patient. Most of them, I know, would really want to see changes in their lives, and maybe even for those maybe who don't have opportunities, even maybe to begin now to get those opportunities. But when you look at the promises that maybe were made, and maybe even the how those promises are supposed to be implemented, you think they are practicable? There's something that can be done?
Some are practical,
yeah.
Some are not practical. As I said, they are populist, just for political expediency. But what makes a policy practical or impractical is the question of the economic fundamentals around that we are experiencing currently. Like I've said already, this government is choked with a lot of debt. Not only the national government, but equally even the county. There are several pending bills. Governors are inheriting huge debts to be paid, and the suppliers are up in arms. They want to be cleared. So we may need to balance between honoring the old debts and prioritizing the new programs that you have to do to address most of the things that people elected you. On that account, people elected you because you promised them you are going to deal with the issue of unemployment, agriculture, and so many other things. So the practicality of this then will require that we are able to distill these promises or policies that we say we are going to do into what can be done within 1 year, or 6 months, 3 years, or 5 years. Okay. So where are the quick wins? And I think, like in our case here in Nakuru, one of the most important issues that was raised in both campaigns for the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio was the issue of fixing agriculture. That agriculture is the backbone of Nakuru economy. How do we ensure that our farmers have the right environment to boost their production? So we need to see what policy directions, proposals, is the executive going to place before the county assembly for approval, so that those finds their way in the budget, at least in the next financial year, and when we are implemented effectively, then we start seeing that we are growing our economy. And when the economy grows, we are able to create employment opportunity for the young people especially. Sure. And when people get employment, they are able to get income, and therefore disposable income, and enjoy a quality life. So I think it will require that the administration looks at the priorities, because we don't have a lot of resources. Nakuru, we generally performed well in terms of our own resource generation, and also what we are able to get from the national exchequer. But it's never enough. So we are dealing with a huge deficit to start with. But then what will make difference in the lives of common Mwananchi is where are we putting priorities. So, but when we start with all these tips and going to plan and planning forever, people will start get a feel that it was just hot air. After all, that is being done. So I think the current administration must move with speed to address the quick wins. What can we do so that we alleviate most of our young people from abject poverty? And some of the things that have been raised around Nakuru being a city. I think that those populist promises that were made, for us to have qualified to get a city status, there were standards and criteria that we had to meet. And we cannot go back on them. We cannot run a city that is heavily congested. We must have a mechanism for doing waste management. We must have a mechanism for dealing with the sewer. We must have a mechanism to ensure that we have 24/7 water running, and so many other things. So we cannot allow a situation whereby everybody comes to the CBD because that was a political promise. We must have order in this town. Even the investors who want to come and invest in the Nakuru city, they must see that there's space to do business. I cannot come and invest and put up a business, pay a lot of money in terms of licenses, and then allow so many people idling around my business premise because this is what they voted for. So there must be order in this town. And I think that's why we have a provision for a city board to manage the peculiar issues around the Nakuru city. So the governor will not be everywhere. So we have a municipal board in Naivasha, in other places like Molo, and we have a city board for Nakuru City to manage the specific issues around this city, to ensure that it grows and it becomes a growth point. Because if you manage this city well, then it will spur development within the city and around the areas around.
And even as we come as we draw to the end of this particular show, Mwalimu, one of the other things that is very important for us also to look at, and some people have been saying, it's one of the reasons that maybe has made or has maybe affected development nationally and even maybe in the counties, is because of maybe the bad working relationship in different levels of leadership. Be it the governors versus the senators, the governors versus the MCAs, and maybe even the president, the executive. As we come in with the new administration, both at the county and maybe even at the national levels, what are some of the things that are supposed to be put into place to ensure that even as they check each other, there is cooperation to ensure development across the country?
I think that's a very unfortunate issue that we have had, particularly in our county, Nakuru. What we should actually have is that there is a role and a responsibility for each and every one of the elected leaders, according to the law, according to the constitution. Each one of them should carry out those roles without witch hunting, without trying to undercut the other. We should have a situation where every member realizes, like for example, the senator, the role of the senator is not to be involved in the nitty-gritty of running the county. The first role is registration at the Senate. There is another role of when it comes to resource allocation. They are the ones actually who say that this county is going to get this much, this county is going to get this much. The other one is to oversight the governor. And of course, there is another institution that is oversighting the governor, and that is the county assembly. So the issues of infighting should never arise.
And most of the senators have been blamed for that, in line maybe with their ambitions to get the seat of the governor.
It's an unfortunate issue and misunderstanding of the roles that they have. If today any leader, say for example the MCA, was to carry out their role very well, why wouldn't they be in a position, for example, to become the MP or the governor or any other thing in the future? So the issue is not to fight the one who is incumbent so as to be seen to be carrying out your work. It is to simply carry out your roles and responsibilities as stipulated in the law and the constitution. And therefore, I hope that the people we have, who have been elected by Kenyans across the country will stop, more further not the infighting. It's not because of anything else. It's because of personal interest, as you have rightly said. It's because of personal interest. And I think it is the high time. My call would be upon the leaders, that they put aside their personal interests and consider the welfare of all Kenyans. If they put aside their personal interests, there is even one who has actually called for more money. So they have not even been sworn in. But one
to move around the counties.
Yeah, to move around the county. Now, when you look at that, you realize that it's unfortunate. It shows that what I was going for is personal interests. But I think we need to move away, the leaders. My call to the leaders is that they move away from their own personal interests and their future plans to the plans of the area where they are in charge of. They carry out their responsibility, and it is their democratic right to go for any other position in future. But right now they have a position. Why should you start fighting for another position in the future while the one that you have already, you are not carrying out the
You've not yet served. Thank you so much, Mwalimu. In a minute, Bwana Oduor, your parting shot.
Yeah.
Even as we look at the cooperation, the coexistence.
The constitution is very clear on the responsibilities of the various leadership cadres, especially at the county level where we are. We've elected a senator to protect our interests at the national level, to ensure that the resources that Nakuru County deserve come to Nakuru. We've elected the MCA to check on the county executive, to check on the governor, on the implementation of the policies that they have set out to implement. The only problem that I see is that we are just through done with this election, and people already have set their eyes on the next elective post that they want. You've been elected the governor, and your immediate interest is how will I be re-elected in 2027.
So 2027 campaigns.
So people started scheming,
to the road, yeah.
and people started scheming for the next election. So my prayer is that the current elected leaders should now focus on implementing and delivering on the electoral promises. People will elect you or not elect you based on how you've performed. And I think that should be the focus for now. Wow. And I'm also calling upon Mwananchi that now that we've made our choices and we have governments in place, both at the national and the county level, let's now organize ourselves, interrogate these policies, participate actively to ensure that they deliver on the policies. What I'm calling for is active citizenship. It doesn't end with electing leaders.
Yes.
We must continuously engage in the process of governance, in the process of making decisions at the local level and even at the national level.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cornelius Odur, the CEO, Center for Enhancing Democracy and Governance. We thank you so much and appreciate your contribution in today's show. And also Mwalimu Michael Gashohi, consultant on matters of leadership, and was also vying for the Senate in Nakuru. Looking forward to 2027?
Right now, I think it is too early to start to start saying which position to go for in 2027.
It's time to serve in your capacity.
But there are things that, as a person, in my own personal life, that I need to do. There are things that I think I need to get involved in, including some of them that we are saying here.
Yes.
I look forward to actively participating in public participation for all the policies that are coming out of our county assembly and probably even the National Assembly and the Senate.
Okay.
Because nothing stops me from looking at it, studying it, and writing a memorandum.
Wow.
That is what I need to do right now. Right now, we need also to give space to the people who have been elected to deliver, so that they don't start later on saying we didn't deliver because we were opposed.
We were opposed,
but of
and
course,
we were given hard time.
but of course, one of the things that we need to know in Nakuru is that the so-called opposition was obliterated. We actually almost don't have an opposition in the county assembly. 44 elected on UDA ticket, out of 55. So that tells you that it will also call for you and me to be very active. To be very active.
That's very okay. I'm being told our time has really run out, but thank you so much also Mwalimu Michael Gashohi, leadership consultant. And that's where we bring it to a close for today. Thank you so much also, our dear viewer, for joining us on this particular show and also for your participation. My name is Mangi Chomola on behalf of the entire crew that has made it a success. Till next Wednesday, wishing you a blessed day.